Are you going to be? Would it be okay, William, if we move this back a little bit? Because if they move their chairs, see what I'm saying? We're going to start in about 3 minutes, so let me get started here explaining what's going on. Alright, very quickly, let's go ahead and stop. I need you looking up here for a second. In the back, if you're not part of the jury, you are free to work silently on your trial. It's fine. There's two teams that have nothing to do except prep. That's fine. Secondly, our prosecution and defense, you're in the right place. I have the slideshow here. I'll just advance it for you as you need. Jury, you're not allowed to use electronics because, unfortunately, what happens is you work on your trial. I know that. And that's okay. But there is paper where William is paper. If you need it, get paper. In fact, have something to write on. Something to write on. They'll give you evidence. But if you have anything else you want to write on, and you need to write down, you need something to write with and write on. Okay. Observation. Yep. I'll leave you guys there. There'll be a reflection, by the way. Once your trial is complete, I'm going to post a reflection today. You can't complete the reflection until you've had the trial, so you've actually completed your trial. Trying to think if there's anything else. Any questions? Judge?
Can you ask the questions after they finish talking?
Yes, Your Honor, I think that's fine. If you want to, Any questions from the attorneys or witnesses? Jurors, any questions before we start?
So we don't get to say anything.
You say nothing. But what they will do is attorneys are going to give you the evidence. The judge will have them reflect at the end. Then tomorrow, you have the entire class period if you need it to review the evidence and come up with a verdict. Yeah. You want to announce it during class at some point. At home, you sit and stare out the window. Yeah.
Are lobbying allowed?
What?
Are lobbying allowed?
No.
What's lobbying mean in this case? Alright, we're going to get started. I'm going to turn over the judge, and I'm just the enforcer. Attorneys, any last second questions? Alright, judge, it's yours. Start.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're now calling the case of the people of Taiwan versus Charles Elliott for the war crime of willful killing. In this trial, the jury must fairly reach a true verdict according to the evidence and the instructions of the court. The attorneys and witnesses must swear to be true and honest in this court of law. Now, if both sides are ready, the trial may begin. Will the prosecution please deliver their opening statement? You have 3 minutes.
Grand jury, today will be accusing Charles Elliott. The British Royal Naval Commander is guilty of willful killing of innocent Chinese people in the First Opium War. Charles Elliott, a decorated high-ranked British naval officer, was sent to China as a special joint diplomat with his cousin George Elliott, an admiral in British Navy. Highly influential Navy officer Charles Elliott was supposed to establish a special trading route with China. The present only demonstrates Britain's interest and emphasis on building a long-term relationship with the Chinese government. However, Charles Elliott never had any intention to obey Chinese law and Chinese authorities. They think they are superior than anybody else because their Western education and technology are more far advanced than the Eastern. They also have this mentality. They will scout out how Chinese officials work and figure out how Chinese operates. When he feels that he can overpower, and he will not hesitate to do that. He thinks he deserves what he asks for. He always puts up a good front. When he sees profits and don't get his way, he changes into a monster instantly without mercy. Look at how he acts in attacking Hong Kong and taking over Hong Kong forcefully in 1840. Charles Elliott opened fire near Bay River and ignored the warning from Chinese authorities. Charles Elliott and his soldiers killed a Chinese while they were drunk, and the Chinese government required a punishment. But Charles Elliott delayed the sentencing and never carried out the punishment. They killed so many Chinese soldiers and civilians because he can't get what he wants. He doesn't even apologize for his barbarian behavior. He has smuggled opium and corrupted Chinese people's bodies and minds. So many overdosed. so many people died that Charles Elliot undermined Chinese authority. Even Britain on cargo ship doesn't want to follow Charles Elliot's order. What's the result? More people died because of their greed and because of their ignorance. Not only do innocent people die, but also Chinese lawyers are being violated. The background information and evidence in this accusation will prove that Charles Elliot is responsible for all Chinese that died from the Opium War, and he started his very own British people too. Thank you.
Now will the defense please deliver their opening statement? You have 3 minutes.
Hello, today we are going to defend Charles Elliot. Charles Elliot was born on 1801 August 15 in the United Kingdom. He was a British Royal Navy officer during the 19th century. He served as chief superintendent of trade during the opium trade. He was ordered by King Victoria to ship opium into China. This led to conflicts between the two nations that eventually led to the Great Opium War. Although he was widely known for being involved in the Opium War, he was actually against the idea of shipping opium into China. In a report to London, he wrote that shipping opium was a disgrace to the people holding the Catholic flag. He has been convicted of willful killing, and we are here to reverse that. He should not be prosecuted because what he did was helpful for the growth of his country. The opium trade actually benefited the British economy in many ways. We hope that you will make the right choice on this case.
The presentation of evidence from the prosecution will begin. You have 7 minutes.
Mind the right place.
Now I will be talking about what Charles Elliot's failure to be a crime. Charles Elliot killed 1 or more person, and Charles Elliot's men killed both random soldiers and civilians. Such person or persons were protected under 1 or more Geneva Conventions. Civilians were under the protection of the Geneva Convention. The preparator was aware of the factual circumstance that established that protected status. Charles Elliot was a Royal Navy officer and Norwegian expert. He couldn't understand the established protect status. The conduct took place in the context of a wars associated with an international armed conflict still facing China, in which the British killed more than 1 Chinese without any compromise, but ensuring those ingredients. Evidence from the painting. The Battle of Escape Creek. Commodore Charles Elliot's squadron chased the war down at Escape Creek, and then once the British ships were grounded as the river narrowed, they chased them in the ship's boat until the junks had been overhauled.
Okay.
The evidence from the book, The First Opium War by Peter Perdue. This is a book about what is happening in the First Opium War, including how Charles Elliot killed 5 of the Chinese people. Tension increases in July when 6 drunk British people, drunk British seamen on shore leave in Kowloon, located near Hong Kong and across from Macau at the mouth of the Canton estuary. Titles arose that Chinese planned to fight for British property in Macau, prompting an exodus into Hong Kong of scores of ships and around 2,000 foreigners. The book establishes Charles Eliot's guilt because it indicates that his men killed Chinese people in an argument, and also refused to have a trial and punishment for Charles Eliot and his men. Evidence from the research paper. Justifiers of British opium trade. Arguments about traders in the times leading up to Opium War. Unlawful smuggling of opium has been happening in Chinese ports for over a century when Commissioner Lin Zexu was appointed in 1839 to eradicate the opium trade in Canton. But official tensions between government and British representatives is escalated soon after Lin demonstrated serious intent to fulfill his official duties. The research paper shows the guilt of Charles Eliot because it indicates how Charles Eliot started opium war. The first battle, is a battle of Xuanpi War. The first battle was a naval engagement fought between British and Chinese troops at the entrance of Human Strait. He ordered this on 27 October to blockade any other British ships bound for Canton. In October 1839, a cargo ship known as the Thomas Coutts arrived in Canton from Singapore. Charles Eliot blocks the Pearl River. A second ship tries to run the blockade. British ships chased after it fired the first shot of what will become the Opium War. The Chinese Navy tries to protect the Russian ship, which was not trading in opium. And a battle starts. The battle was won by British. The Chinese endured many losses. The British only one injured. This was the Battle of Xuanpi. The Kowloon incident happened in July 1839, when a crew of American and British sailors arrived in Kowloon in search of provisions. They get drunk on rice, wine, and kill a man. Sailors were supposed to be tied up due to the Chinese code and the Swiss law. However, Charles Eliot refuses and delays the sentencing, eventually giving the prison terms that were never to be met, makes tensions increase.
In 1841, reports of Charles Eliot leading the British Army to attack the two forts guarding the mouth of the Pearl River and Trumpet and High. This map shows where British Army sends fleets to destroy Chinese strongholds and people who means no harm to the British. The very first rockets fired from the premises was seen to enter the Yorkshire, against which it was directed. Near Glasgow and almost the descent afterwards. It blew up with the terrific explosion, launching into the every soul on board, and pouring forth its blaze like the mighty brush on fire from a volcano. Several more battles followed in February and March 1841, with the British seizing towns and forts of the Pearl River, putting them in a position to fort Port, and peace by the end of May. Local officials and merchants paid the British $6 million to withdraw. Following the withdrawal from Canton, the British headed north again, occupying several cities between August and October 1841. Campaigns the following years captured Chengdu and Shanghai, then still a small town. Then the final major battle of the war took place in Xinjiang, and early British assaults destroyed much of
The prosecution may call its witness to be questioned.
did you leave Charles Elliot and went back to Britain by yourself?
Please state your name first.
I, George Elliot of the British Navy Royal Officer, is committing crime to war crime of willful killing, alongside with my cousin, Charles Elliot, that together we fought for the British in the First Opium War. George Elliot, state I was a Royal Navy British officer who served during the French Revolutionary and Parliament Wars and the First Opium War. The facts in this statement come from my own experiences, which I had enough knowledge to say that Charles Elliot is guilty by war crime of willful killing. Charles Elliot was a British Royal Navy officer, diplomat, and colonial administrator. He became the first administrator of Hong Kong in 1841, while serving as both plenipotentiary and chief superintendent of the British trade in China.
Why did you leave Charles Elliot and went back to Britain by yourself?
I, George Elliot, was promoted to Rear Admiral on January 10th of 1837 and went out as Commander-in-Chief at the Cape of Good Hope Station. I was then sent to China in February 1840 during the First Opium War as Commander-in-Chief and joined plenipotentiary with my cousin, Captain Charles Elliot. I oversaw operations between July and November, but my actions were viewed by the Foreign Secretary as being ineffective. I, George Elliot, admit that I was out of my depth, and on my health deteriorating, returned to Britain in November.
For what reason do you have to commit yourself crime with your cousins Charles Elliot?
I, George Elliot, commit crime to the ICC Elements of Crimes, Article 821A1, war crime of willful killing. I killed more than one person from the Kowloon incident, and this was not an accident. As a Royal Navy officer, both my cousin and I were aware of the factual circumstances that established that protected status, especially not in the lands of our home. We were in China, a foreign country, with 500 million people in population. Our men did not only kill soldiers from the pavilion we got drunk in, civilians too. It is a shame that I believe my facts stated here violated all four elements of the crimes are true.
How long did you stay in China compared to Charles Elliot?
I stayed in China for 3 months, comparing to Charles Elliot, he stayed for 4 years.
The defense has 3 minutes to cross-examine the prosecution's witnesses.
So did you accompany your brother in the quest to China?
No, I did not at the first point. He was sent by Queen Victoria to the First Opium War at the first time. I then joined plenipotentiary with him because I was sent to China. I didn't go to him with China at first.
Did you have any intent of stopping Charles Elliot?
It was never my intent or the British government's intent to destroy so much of China and occupy so much China's land, or to kill so much people. A parliament voted in April 1840 to send a fleet to China, carrying Britain's demands, which are money for the opium destroyed, the end of Kowloon monopoly, and the right, which was technically illegal, to occupy an island off the coast to use as a base. His main goal was to bring his demands to the Daguan Emperor. July 6th, Charles Elliot captured the island of Zhoushan near the mouth of Yangtze. Just in 9 minutes, marching through defenses after local officials refused to surrender.
Were you involved in any of the decisions that was included into shipping oath?
I was not included into any decisions. It was the British government's decision, but Charles Elliot disobeyed and killed people for not surrendering.
Did you kill any Chinese men?
Yes, I did, with my cousin Charles Elliot, which he was in charge of many attacks, which was not an obey from the British government.
Were you the captain of the first sail to Hong Kong?
No, I was not the first captain of the sail to Hong Kong. I went back to Britain in November 1840 while Charles Elliot became the first administrator of Hong Kong in 1841.
The witness is excused. Will the prosecution please collect their evidence from the jury?
Yeah, that's kind of my fault. I do need you guys to collect it because the defense is going to hand out their evidence. They'll get it back tomorrow. It's my fault. Just put it in the folder.
The presentation of evidence from the defense will begin. Hand out your evidence. And you have 7 minutes.
Is it just this one slide for the sake of time, Julie? Is it just this one slide? Oh, I see it. These down here too. Huh? These all together here. We're not starting the timer, don't worry. Tell me about the order here, Julie. Is this correct? I have this one slide here. That's all I have. Do what?
Witness.
Go down to witness.
Yes.
Put that forward then.
Yes.
Is that? Okay. All right, you're set. I'll start the timer.
Charles Elliot, a British knight, admiral, and charged affairs in Texas, the son of Hugh and Margaret Elliot, was born in 1801, probably in Dresden, Saxony, when his father was serving as British minister. In 1815, he entered the Royal Navy for service in the East Indies and on the African coast. He retired from the Navy in 1838 to enter the colonial service. In 1830, he was appointed protector of slaves in Guiana, where he became an abolitionist. He was thus in charge of English trade relations at the time when Chinese authorities began efforts to stop the illegal opium traffic conducted by British merchants and was largely responsible for the outbreak of the Opium War in 1840. After attacking Chinese forts in January 1841, he and the Chinese plenipotentiary signed an agreement, the Convention of Trench, that proved unacceptable to both governments. After being censured for inadequately representing British mercantile interests, Elliot was relieved of his duties by Henry Cullen, but not before further hostilities and a threatened assault forced Chinese authorities to ransom the city of Canton. Elliot was reassigned and on August 6, 1842 arrived in Galveston, Texas, as British charge fear of the Republic of Texas. In this post, Elliot advocated the abolition of slavery in Texas, worked for the establishment of free trade, and emphasized the importance of securing peace in Mexico. days, China made a profit in trade, and a large amount of silver dollars flowed in. However, since the 1980s, the opium trade has been booming and the situation has reversed. The Qing government banned the importation of opium since 1790, but since the 1834 East India Company lost its privilege to trade with China, foreign investors have joined the ranks of opium traders in attempt to make huge profits. The situation of Chinese silver dollar outflow has become more serious. In view of this, the Qing court sent Lin Zexi, Minister of Imperial Enforcement, to Guangdong in March 1839 to implement a ban on smoking. The law then reported in details to British court and decided to suspend the dismiss before accepting instructions. The British nationals then withdrew from Guangzhou and temporarily stayed in Macau. However, as the government of Macau declared that it was impossible to protect their safety, British overseas retired to strips in Hong Kong in the summer of 1839. Charles Elliot, the plenipotentiary of British government who directed the First Opium War, is a determined opium trade opponent. He was the captain of the British Guiana medical ship Slave Protector. His former British-Chinese liaison officer, Sir Robinson, was also an opponent of the opium trade. He reported that the British government, whenever the British government wants us to stop British ships from participating in opium illegally, we can all achieve trade. But the more sure way is to ban British poppy cultivation and opium production. This proposal led to strong opposition from the Indian authorities. He was finally removed from the office and temporarily appointed Charles Elliot to take up the post. Once he took office, he requested the British government to change its historical course in China and urged the government to take measures to stop opium smuggling. He personally believed that this trade was a crime and a shame to the British Empire. In his report to London, Charles Elliot wrote, "The opium trade is a disgrace to the people who are holding the Catholic flag."
Oh, you had the last one thing, it's the prosecution act, supposed to say, then you do.
The defense may call its witness to be questioned.
Did anyone order you to ship opium into China?
Yes.
Who?
Queen Victoria.
Were you against the idea of shipping opium into China?
Yes, I even wrote a report to London saying that opium is a disgrace to people who's holding Catholic flag.
Did you negotiate with anyone before sending opium into China?
Yes, I negotiated with our recent leader, George Everett, and he agreed with sending opium to China.
Where were you during the battles that occurred in the beginning of the Opium War?
I was on the ship and I wasn't involved in any of the battles that my army assaults at the Chinese.
Please tell me about your story throughout the Opium War.
I'm Charles Elliot and I'm born in 1801, August 15 in England, United Kingdom. I'm also a British Royal Navy officer, and I'm going to be explaining the story of what happened during the Opium War in my own personal perspective. In the year of 1833, I was appointed to the master attendant to the staff of Lord Napier. My position involved in British ships and crews that operate between two Asian countries, Macau and Canton. This is how I first affiliated with the Chinese country. Later in the year of 1836, I replaced Sir George and became the chief superintendent of British trade. I was a part of the Opium War during 1839 to 1842. However, I was ordered by the Queen of England, Queen Victoria. During this time of war, I spent almost all of my time on board on the first iron warship, Nemesis. As you can tell from the map here, there, you can see the distance away from the British iron warship Nemesis to the Canton River. In 1842, I tried to negotiate with the Chinese Emperor Constantine in the Convention of Chenpai. My negotiation, among other terms, was the secession of Hong Kong Island to the United Kingdom. After hearing my declaration, Emperor Daogong rejected the offer following an accusation of my disobedience. I understand that my action may be aroused many resentments and disapproval among the military officers of the expedition, but in all honesty, all my actions were done to protect the people of my own country, as well as returning the confidence of treating population of the southern provinces. It is my main purpose to create a more intimate and social and commercial relationship with the country with good deeds and intentions. Thank you very much for your time.
The prosecution have 3 minutes to cross-examine the defense's witness.
Judy said he did not participate during the Opium War. He was on a ship called Nemesis. The Nemesis was the first steam-powered iron warship. Was it true that 6 drunken British seamen persecuted both Chinese soldiers and civilians?
Yes.
What were your rank of charge during the first Opium War?
I'm the British Royal Navy officer during the first Opium War.
So you were in charge of any attacks on the Chinese land and people.
Yes.
What is the main goal of your attacks?
My main goal of my attack was to send opium to China, but it wasn't my idea, it was Queen Victoria's.
So did you disobey or follow the orders of British government?
Yes.
But their commands were to send a message to Daogong Emperor not to kill people or occupy lands.
Yes.
Was it true that you were romantic? Why did you refuse to acknowledge you have caused the war after you killed all the Chinese people?
Because causing and wanting a war wasn't in my control. It was Queen Victoria's who told us to attack China and send opium to China. I was just in charge of the army and controlling them to attack.
Why did your fleet destroy an African modern city after Chinese authorities had already given you $6 million and withdraw the troops?
Because I was in control by Queen Victoria.
That's it.
The witness is excused while the defense collect their evidence from the jury. The prosecution may begin their closing statement. Will the prosecution please begin their closing statement?
Grand juries in conclusion understand that should be responsible for all of the Chinese that did from the Opium War he started and his own British people too. And the following incidents happens in July 1839 when a group of Americans and British soldiers arrives in England in search of provisions. They get drunk on rice, wine and killed. Soldiers were supposed to be tied up to provisions. Soldiers were supposed to be tied up to the Chinese courts and issue law. However, Elliot refused and delayed their sentencing. And and this makes us think that he should be indicted as the crime of willful killing. After that, the British merchant ship that lost faith in Elliot's ignores the Elliot's policy pure regret. Thus the ship tries to run the block. But the British ship chase after it and fire the first shot, and this becomes the first of the war. And the Chinese Navy tries to protect the merchant ships, which was not champion in open battle sought. In open war, Chinese endured a lot of losses, but the British only had one jury, which is the first battle of Chengdu. And more people died because of their good and because of their heroism. Not only the innocent people died, and the Chinese law are being violated. And even though Charles Elliot and his army are told their occupation, they still cause a huge damage to China. So the justice must be served, and I hope you understand the information and evidence that we present to you today in charging Charles Elliot, a man who violated the crime of willful killing.
The defense may begin their closing statement.
Thank you, grand jury, for listening to our defense. Our witness, Charles Elliot, shouldn't be executed by the crime of willful killing. Charles Elliot served as the Chief Administrator of British Navy, need to listen and follow the orders of the British government. Charles Elliot himself is opponent of the open trading, but being a British man, and also with the pressure from the British government, he needs to do what makes profit for his country. His position involved the British ships and crews, and he did try to negotiate with the Chinese emperor. So grand jury, we shouldn't charge Charles Elliot with the crime of willful killing, when he had done so much to help and decrease the number of people that died in the war, and should turn our point to the British government who made the whole decision. Thank you very much.
The jury will now decide whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty. If all 6 jurors are unanimous in their decision, this will be the jury's verdict. We won't have the jury leave the room right now, but we will give them a few minutes to talk and see if they can reach a verdict.
Alright, so that's it. You can cut the cameras whenever you want. For now, that's all we need recorded, so good job. So, are you gonna be, would it be okay, William, if we move this back a little bit? Because if they move their chairs. See what I'm saying? We move this. We're gonna start in about 3 minutes, and let me get started here explaining what's going on. Alright, very quickly, let's go ahead and stop. I need you looking up here for a second. In the back, if you're not part of the jury, you are free to work silently on your trial. It's fine. There's 2 teams that have nothing to do except prep. That's fine. Secondly, our prosecution and defense, you're in the right place. I have the slideshow here. I'll just advance it for you as you need. Jury, you're not allowed to use electronics because unfortunately what happens is you work on your trial. I know that. And that's okay. But there is paper where William is paper. If you need it, get paper. In fact, have something to write on. Something to write on. They'll give you evidence. But if you have anything else you want to write on, and you need to write down, you need something to write with and write on. Okay. Observation. Yep. I'll leave you guys there. There'll be a reflection, by the way. Once your trial is complete, I'm going to post a reflection today. You can't complete the reflection until you've had the trial, until you've actually completed your trial. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Any questions? Judge?
Can I ask the questions after they finish talking?
Yes, Your Honor, I think that's fine. If you want to, Any questions from the attorneys or witnesses? Jurors, any questions before we start?
So we don't get to say anything.
You say nothing. But what they will do is attorneys are going to give you the evidence. The judge will have them collect at the end. Then tomorrow, you have the entire class period if you need it to review the evidence and come up with a conclusion, a verdict. Yeah. You want to announce it during class tomorrow at some point. At home, you sit and stare out the window. Yeah.
Are lobbying allowed?
What?
Are lobbying allowed?
No.
What's lobbying mean in this case?
Is that real?
Alright, I'm going to get started. I'm going to turn over the judge, and I'm just the enforcer. Attorneys, any last second questions? Alright, judge, it's yours. Start.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're now calling the case of the people of Taiwan versus Charles Elliott for the war crime of willful killing. In this trial, the jury must fairly reach a true verdict according to the evidence and the instructions of the court. The attorneys and witnesses must swear to be true and honest in this court of law. Now, if both sides are ready, the trial may begin. Will the prosecution please deliver their opening statement? You have 3 minutes.
Grand jury, today will be accusing Charles Elliott. The British Royal Naval Commander is guilty of willful killing of innocent Chinese people in the First Opium War. Charles Elliott, a decorated high-ranked British naval officer, was sent to China as a special joint diplomat with his cousin George Elliott, an admiral in British Navy. Highly influential Navy officer Charles Elliott was supposed to establish a special training route with China. The present only demonstrates Britain's interest and emphasis on building a long-term relationship with the Chinese government. However, Charles Elliott never had any intention to obey Chinese law and Chinese authorities. They think they are superior than anybody else because their Western education and technology are more far advanced than the Eastern. They also have this mentality. They will scout out how Chinese officials work and figure out how Chinese operates. When he feels like he can overpower, and he will not hesitate to do that. He thinks he deserves what he asks for. He always put up a good front. When he sees profits and don't get his way, he changes into a monster instantly without mercy. Look at how he acts in attacking Hong Kong and taking over Hong Kong forcefully in 1840. Charles Elliott opened fire near Bay River and ignored the warning from Chinese authority. Charles Elliott and his soldiers killed a Chinese while they were drunk, and the Chinese government required a punishment. But Charles Elliott delayed the sentencing and never carried out the punishment. They killed so many Chinese soldiers and civilians because he can't get what he wants. He doesn't even apologize for his barbarian behavior. He has smuggled opium and corrupted Chinese people's bodies and minds. So many overdosed. So many people died. Then Charles Elliott undermined Chinese authority. Even Britain on cargo ship doesn't want to follow Charles Elliott's order. What's the result? More people died because of their greed and because of their ignorance. Not only do innocent people die, but also Chinese lawyers are being violated. The background information and evidence in this accusation will prove that Charles Elliott is responsible for all Chinese that died from the Opium War, and he started his very own British people too. Thank you.
Now will the defense please deliver their opening statement? You have 3 minutes.
Hello, guys. Today we are going to defend Charles Elliott. Charles Elliott was born on 1801 August 2nd in the United Kingdom. He was a British Royal Navy officer during the 19th century. He served as chief superintendent of trade during the opium trade. He was ordered by Queen Victoria to ship opium into China. This led to conflicts between the two nations that eventually led to the famous Opium War. Although he was widely known for being involved in the Opium War, he was actually against the idea of shipping opium into China. In a report to London, he wrote that shipping opium was a disgrace to the people holding the Catholic flag. He has been convicted of willful killing, and we are here to reverse that. He should not be prosecuted because what he did was helpful for the growth of his country. The opium trade actually benefited the British economy in many ways. We hope that you will make the right choice on this case.
The presentation of evidence from the prosecution will begin. You have 7 minutes.
Am I in the right place?
talking about what Charles Elliot found it to be a crime. Charles Elliot killed 101%, and Charles Elliot's men killed both random soldiers and civilians. Such persons or persons were protected under one or more Geneva Conventions. Civilians were under the protection of the Geneva Convention. The preparator was aware of the factual circumstance as established that protected status. Charles Elliot was a Royal Navy officer and there is no reason he couldn't understand and establish protect status. The conduct took place in the context of and was associated with an international armed conflict still facing China, in which the British killed more than one Chinese without any arguments or tension built into the defense. Evidence from the painting. The Battle of Escape Creek. Commodore Charles Elliot's squadron chased the war zone at Escape Creek, and then once the British ships were grounded as the river narrowed, they chased them in the ship's boat until the junks had been overhauled. Evidence from the book, The First Opium War by Peter Perdue. This is a book about what is happening in the First Opium War, including how Charles Elliot killed and fight with the Chinese people. Tension increases in July when 6 drunk to the British people. Drunk British seamen on shore leave in Kowloon, located near Hong Kong and across from Macau at the mouth of the Canton estuary. Titles arose that Chinese planned to fight for British property in Macau, prompting an exodus into Hong Kong of scores of ships and around 2,000 foreigners. The book establishes Charles Elliot's guilt because it indicates that his men killed Chinese people in an argument, and also refused to have a trial and punishment for Charles Elliot and his men. Evidence from the research paper. Justifiers of British opium trade, arguments about traders and the times leading up to Opium War. Unlawful smuggling of opium has been happening in Chinese ports for over a century. When Commissioner Lin Zexu was appointed in 1839 to eradicate the opium trade in Canton, but official tensions between government and British representatives is escalated soon after Lin demonstrated serious intent to fulfill his official duties. The research paper shows the guilt of Charles Elliot because it indicates how Charles Elliot started Opium War. The first battle, is a battle of Xuanpi War. The first battle was a naval engagement fought between British and Chinese troops at the entrance of Huan Strait. He ordered this on 27 October to blockade any other British ships bound for Canton. In October 1839, a cargo ship known as the Thomas Coutts arrived in Canton from Singapore. Charles Elliot blocks the Pearl River. A second ship tries to run the blockade. British ships chased after it fired the first shot of what will become the Opium War. The Chinese Navy tries to protect the merchant ship, which was not trading in opium. And a battle starts. The battle was won by the British. The Chinese endured many losses. The British only one injured. This was the Battle of Xuanpi.
The Kowloon incident happened in July 1839, when a crew of American and British sailors arrived in Kowloon in search of provisions. They get drunk on rice, wine, and kill a man. Sailors were supposed to be tied up due to the Chinese code and the Swiss law. However, Charles Elliot refuses and delays the sentencing, eventually giving the prison terms that were never to be met, makes tension increase.
In 1841, reports of Charles Elliot's leading the British Army to attack the two forts guarding the mouth of the River and Trumpet and Idaho. This map shows where British Army sends fleets to destroy Chinese strongholds and people who means no harm to the British. The very first rockets fired from the premises was seen to enter Yorkshire against which it was very near class of the and almost the descent afterwards. It blew up with a terrific explosion, launching into every soul on board and pouring forth its blaze like the mighty push on fire from a volcano. Several more battles followed in February and March 1841, with the British seizing towns and forts of the Pearl River, putting them in a position to fort Boyd and the south by the end of May. Local officials and merchants paid the British $6 million to withdraw. Following the withdrawal from Canton, the British headed north again, occupying several cities between August and October 1841. Campaigns the following years captured Rampur and Shanghai, then still a small town. Then the final major battle of the war took place in Saint-Jean, and where the British assaults destroyed much of the
The prosecution may call its witness to be questioned.
Why did you leave Charles Elliot and went back to Britain by yourself?
Please state your name first.
I, George Elliot, of the British Navy Royal Officer, is committing crime to war crime of willful killing, alongside with my cousin, Charles Elliot, that together we fought for the British in the First Opium War. George Elliot state I was a Royal Navy British officer who served during the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars and the First Opium War. The facts in this statement come from my own experiences, which I had not enough knowledge to say that Charles Elliot is guilty by war crime of willful killing. Charles Elliot was a British Royal Navy officer, diplomat, and colonial administrator. He became the first administrator of Hong Kong in 1841, while serving as both plenipotentiary and chief superintendent of the British trade in China.
Why did you leave Charles Elliot and went back to Britain by yourself?
I, George Elliot, was promoted to Rear Admiral on January 10th of 1837 and went out as Commander-in-Chief at the Cape of Good Hope Station. I was then sent to China in February 1840 during the First Opium War as Commander-in-Chief and joined plenipotentiary with my cousin, Captain Charles Elliot. I oversaw operations between July and November, but my actions were viewed by the Foreign Secretary as being ineffective. I, George Elliot, admit that I was out of my depth and on my health deteriorating, returned to Britain in November.
For what reason do you have to commit yourself crime with your cousins Charles Elliot?
I, George Elliot, commit crime to the ICC Elements of Crimes, Article 821A1, war crime of willful killing. I killed more than one person from the Kowloon incident, and this was not an accident. As a Royal Navy officer, both my cousin and I were aware of the factual circumstances that established that protected status, especially not in the lands of our home. We were in China, a foreign country, with 500 million people in population. Our men did not only kill soldiers from the pavilion we got drunk in, civilians too. It is a shame that I believe my facts stated here, violated all 4 elements of the crimes are true.
How long did you stay in China compared to Charles Elliot?
I stayed in China for 3 months, comparing to Charles Elliot, he stayed for 4 years.
The defense has 3 minutes to cross-examine the prosecution's witnesses.
So did you accompany your brother in the quest to China?
No, I did not at the first point. He was sent by Queen Victoria to the first Opium War at the first time. I then joined Londonderry with him because I was sent to China. I didn't go to him with China at first.
Did you have any intent of stopping Charles Elliot?
It was never my intent or the British government's intent to destroy so much of China and occupy so much China land or to kill so much people. A parliament voted in April 1840 to send a fleet to China carrying Britain's demands, which are money for the opium destroyed, the end of Kowloon monopoly, and the right, which was technically illegal, to occupy an island of the coast to use as a base. His main goal was to bring his demands to the Daguan Emperor. July 6th, Charles Elliot captured the island of Zhoushan near the mouth of Yangtze. Just in 9 minutes, marching through defenses after local officials refused to surrender.
Were you involved in any of the decisions that was included into shipping opium?
I was not included into any decisions. It was the British government's decision, but Charles Elliot disobeyed and killed people for not surrendering.
Did you kill any Chinese men?
Yes, I did, with my cousin Charles Elliot, which he was in charge of many attacks, which was not an obey from the British government.
Were you the captain of the first sail to Hong Kong?
No, I was not the first captain of the sail to Hong Kong. I went back to Britain in November 1840 while Charles Elliot became the first administrator of Hong Kong in 1841.
The witness is excused. Will the prosecution please collect their evidence from the jury?
Yeah, that's kind of my fault. I do need you guys to collect it because the defense is going to hand out their evidence. They'll get it back tomorrow. It's my fault. Just put it in the folder.
The presentation of evidence from the defense will begin. Hand out your evidence. And you have 7 minutes.
Is it just this one slide before we start the timer, Julie? Is it just this one slide?
I don't think so.
Oh, I see it. These down here too, huh? These all together here. Or, we're not starting the timer, don't worry. Tell me about the order here, Julie. Is this correct?
This one's first.
I have this one slide here.
This is about
That's all I have. Do what?
witness.
Go down to witness.
Yes.
Put that forward then.
Yes.
Is that? Okay. All right, you're set. I'll start the timer.
Charles Elliot, a British knight, admiral, and chargé d'affaires in Texas, the son of Hugh and Margaret Elliot, was born in 1801, probably in Dresden, when his father was serving as British minister. In 1815, he entered the Royal Navy for service in the East Indies and on the African coast. He retired from the Navy in 1828 to enter the colonial service. In 1830, he was appointed protector of slaves in Guinea, where he became an abolitionist. He was thus in charge of English trade relations at the time when Chinese authorities began efforts to stop the illegal opium traffic conducted by British merchants and was largely responsible for the outbreak of the Opium War in 1840. After attacking Chinese forts in January 1841, he and the Chinese plenipotentiary Sherry signed an agreement, the Convention of Trent, that proved unacceptable to both governments. After being censured for inadequately representing British mercantile interests, Elliot was relieved of his duties by Henry Pullen, but not before further hostilities and a threatened assault forced Chinese authorities to ransom the city of Canton. Elliot was reassigned and on August 6, 1842 arrived in Galveston, Texas, as British chargé d'affaires of the Republic of Texas. In this post, Elliot advocated the abolition of slavery in Texas, worked for the establishment of free trade, and emphasized the importance of securing peace in Mexico. In the early days, China made a profit in trade, and a large amount of silver dollars flowed in. However, since the 1980s, the opium trade has been booming and the situation has reversed. The Qing government banned the importation of opium since 1790, but since the 1834 East India Company lost its privilege to trade with China, foreign investors have joined the ranks of opium traders in attempt to make two profits. The situation of Chinese silver dollar outflow has become more serious. In view of this, the Qing court sent Lin Zexi, Minister of Imperial Enforcement, to Guangdong in March 1839 to implement a ban on smoking. The law then reported in details to British courts and decided to suspend business before accepting instructions. The British nationals then withdrew from Guangzhou and temporarily stayed in Macau. However, as the government of Macau declared that it was impossible to protect their safety, British overseas retired to ships in Hong Kong in the summer of 1839. Charles Elliot, the plenipotentiary of British government who directed the First Opium War, is a determined opium trade opponent. He was the captain of the British Guinea medical ship Slave Protector. His former British-Chinese liaison officer, Sir Robinson, was also an opponent of the opium trade. He reported that the British government, whenever the British government wants us to stop British ships from participating in opium illegally, we can all achieve trade. But the more sure way is to ban British poppy cultivation and opium production. This proposal led to strong opposition from the Indian authorities. He was finally removed from office and temporarily appointed Charles Eliot to take up the post. Once he took office, he requested the British government to change its historical course in China and urged the government to take measures to stop opium smuggling. He personally believed that this trade was a crime and a shame to the British Empire. In his report to London, Charles Eliot wrote, "The opium trade is a disgrace to the people who are holding the Catholic flag."
Oh, you had the last one thing, that's the prosecution, I suppose to say, then you do.
The defense may call its witness to be questioned.
Did anyone order you to ship opium into China?
Yes.
Who?
Queen Victoria.
Were you against the idea of shipping opium into China?
Yes, I even wrote a report to London saying that opium is a disgrace to people who's holding Catholic flag.
Did you negotiate with anyone before sending opium into China?
Yes, I negotiated with our recent leader, George Eliot, and he agreed with sending opium to China.
Where were you during the battles that occurred in the beginning of the Opium War?
I was on the ship and I wasn't involved in any of the battles that my army assaults at the Chinese.
Please tell me about your story throughout the Opium War.
I'm Charles Eliot and I'm born in 1801, August 15 in England, United Kingdom. I'm also a British Royal Navy officer, and I'm going to be explaining the story of what happened during the Opium War in my own personal perspective. In the year of 1833, I was appointed to the master attendant to the staff of Lord Napier. My position involved in British ships and crews that operate between two Asian countries, Macau and Canton. This is how I first affiliated with the Chinese country. Later in the year of 1836, I replaced Sir George and became the chief superintendent of British trade. I was a part of the Opium War during 1839 to 1842. However, I was ordered by the Queen of England, Queen Victoria. During this time of war, I spent almost all of my time on board on the first iron warship, Nemesis. As you can tell from the map here, you can see the distance away from the British iron warship Nemesis to the Canton River. In 1842, I tried to negotiate with the Chinese Emperor concerned in the Convention of Chenpai. My negotiation, among other terms, was the secession of Hong Kong Island to the United Kingdom. After hearing my declaration, Emperor Dongdong rejected the offer following an accusation of my disobedience. I understand that my action may be aroused many resentments and disapproval among the military officers of the expedition, but in all honesty, all my actions were done to protect the people of my own country, as well as returning the confidence of trading population of the southern provinces. It is my main purpose to create a more intimate and social and commercial relationship with the country with good deeds and intentions. Thank you very much for your time.
The prosecution have 3 minutes to cross-examine the defense's witness.
Judy said he did not participate during the Opium War. He was on a ship called Nemesis. The Nemesis was the first steam-powered iron warship. Was it true that 6 drunken British seamen persecuted both Chinese soldiers and civilians?
Yes.
What were your rank of charge during the First Opium War?
I'm the British Royal Navy officer during the First Opium War.
So you were in charge of any attacks in the Chinese land and people.
Yes.
What is the main goal of your attacks?
My main goal of my attack was to send opium to China, but it wasn't my idea. It was Queen Victoria's.
So did you disobey or follow the orders of British government?
Yes.
But their commands were to send a message to Dao Guang Emperor not to kill people or occupy lands.
Yes.
Was it true that you were a man? Why did you refuse to acknowledge you have caused the war after you killed all of the Chinese people?
Because causing and wanting a war wasn't in my control. It was Queen Victoria's who told us to attack China and send opium to China. I was just in charge of the army and controlling them to attack.
Why did your fleet destroy and occupy more than Sun City after Chinese authorities had already given you $6 million and withdraw the troops?
Because I was in control by Queen Victoria.
That's it.
The witness is excused. Will the defense collect their evidence from the jury? The prosecution may begin their closing statement. Will the prosecution please begin their closing statement?
Grand jury's in conclusion Charles Elliot should be responsible for all of the Chinese that did from the Opium War he started and his own British people too. And the colonial incidents happens in July 1839 when a group of Americans and British soldiers arrives in England in search of provisions. They get drunk on rice wine and killed. Soldiers were supposed to be tied up to provisions. Soldiers were supposed to be tied up to the Chinese courts and issue law. However, Elliot refused and delayed their sentencing, and this made us think that he should be indicted as the crime of willful killing. After that, the British ship has lost faith in Elliot's ignores the thing. Elliot's plot to Pearl River was the ship tries to run the block. But the British ship chased after it and fired the first shot, and this became the first of the war. And the Chinese Navy tries to protect these national ships, which was not jamming in open battle started. In Opium War, Chinese endured a lot of losses, but the British only had one jury, which is the first battle of Chengdu. And more people died because of their greed and because of their cruelties. Not only the innocent people died, and Chinese law are being violated. And even through Charles Elliot and his army are told their occupation, they still cause a huge damage to China. So the justice must be served, and I hope you understand the information and evidence that we present to you today in charging Charles Elliot, a man who violated the crime of willful killing.
The defense may begin their closing statement.
Thank you, grand jury, for listening to our defense. Our witness, Charles Elliot, shouldn't be executed by the crime of willful killing. Charles Elliot served as the Chief Administrator of British Navy, needs to listen and follow the orders of the British government. Charles Elliot himself is opponent of the opium trading, but being a British man and also with the pressure from the British government, he needs to do what makes profit for his country. His position involved the British ships and crews, and he did try to negotiate with the Chinese emperor. So grand jury, we shouldn't charge Charles Elliott with the crime of willful killing, when he had done so much to help and decrease the number of people that died in the war, and should turn our point to the British government who made the whole decision. Thank you very much.
The jury will now decide whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty. If all 6 jurors are unanimous in their decision, this will be the jury's verdict. We won't have the jury leave the room right now, but we will give them a few minutes to talk and see if they can reach a verdict.
Alright, so that's it. You can cut the cameras whenever you want. For now, that's all we need recorded, so good job. So,